An August special election moves closer to reality. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. We are a couple of steps closer to a special August election this week. The Ohio Senate approved putting a question on an August ballot that would ask voters if they want to make it harder to change the Ohio Constitution. It would require a 60% majority to change the Constitution. It also mandates getting signatures from all Ohio counties, not just half, as is required now. And it does not give citizens an extra 10 days to collect signatures if they fall short. Julie Carr-Smythe, the Senate approval of this was always sort of a given. So where do we stand on this? What are the chances this happens?
Absolutely. The Senate, we thought would pass it, and it was from there that we saw the August idea emerge, so that has passed as well. In the Ohio House, there are many issues around that. Last session, when this emerged in the House, it couldn't get enough votes, so the then Speaker didn't put it out to the floor. He was not willing to do that. Some of the issues are that there is a contingent of Republicans in this state who are looking at a 60% measure as the, government intrusion. And there particularly is a group out there that wants a medical freedom amendment, for example, which would ban vaccine mandates or limit them. And they've been collecting signatures diligently for 2 or 3 years trying to get enough. And so the idea, and there were about a dozen sitting lawmakers on the Republican side who supported that concept.
Terry, does this come to a vote? I mean, it could backfire down the road, year, 2 years, 3 years down the road. Plus, this is not going to be popular with voters, but it is an August election.
Well, supposedly, according to a key source that told me this afternoon, they now have today the 60 votes signed kind of in blood or on paper. But as we all know in politics, sometimes what's promised is not always delivered. I think the bigger question is, I think probably this is going to be on the ballot in August, and then it's going to be one heck of a fight. And the question is, what's the message? Because as we've seen in the past, including back in the 1980s on merit selection of judges, when they had TV commercials with chains and locks around voting booths and saying you couldn't come in there, this is an issue where there's a message challenge. And on constitutional amendments, it's always easier to get a no vote than to get a yes vote.
Jesse Baumert, is this going to be an indicator of the strength of the anti-abortion rights faction, lobby group at the State House, whether this gets on the ballot in August?
I mean, I think they've certainly been one of the most vocal voices for this particular change to try to, make it harder to amend the Constitution potentially in November regarding abortion access and that measure. So, we shall see. We spoke with, myself and other State House reporters spoke with Speaker Stevens after session this past week, and he said that if it's on the floor that he will vote for it. They were still counting noses.
Sam, good government groups, League of Women Voters, is Common Cause taking a stand on this? You oppose it, I assume.
Come on now, this is undemocratic and lawlessness. We beat them fair and square with the rules. Now they want to change the rules. Why? Because we beat them fair and square. It is undemocratic to want to do this. In any forum that you are involved with, 50 plus 1 is enough. Why do we need 60%? You know why? Because they are afraid of citizen action. They are afraid of citizens coming together. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's going to have a difficult time for 2 reasons. We have a redistricting proposal that's coming up. We have some anti-abortion stuff that's coming up. So it's not going to sneak through like somebody knows it's not coming. We know it's coming, so we're going to be prepared.
Julie, there's 2 things that have to happen here. They have to get this on the ballot, and they have to make August elections legal again, because right now they're illegal, and the governor has to sign that one. He doesn't have to. He plays no role in the resolution and the amendment process, but he has to agree to bring back the August elections, something he signed a law just a few months ago that made them illegal.
Right, and the fact that they have changed course, I'll say, on the issue of August elections in such a short period of time is seeing some pushback for Republicans at the State House. DeWine is saying he will review the bill. He has not said, I won't veto it or I will. But it does come with a $20 million price tag, which is something else that they have to live with if they authorize this.
And on this issue of in the past, the second bill to authorize the election, that potentially could be referendable, but my sources tell me today that they aren't going to try and referendum, which could block that being on the August ballot. They want to go ahead and score, pound it in the ground, because they feel they've got the cards and the ability to defeat it.
May I ask the question, what about the capital budget? It has to be 60%?
Yes, according to this, every amendment has to be 60%. All the bonds, everything, according to the way it's written. Meanwhile, ads are running on TV saying that the abortion amendment as proposed would limit parental rights, and that has brought criticism from abortion rights supporters. And Jesse Ballmer, you wrote a piece this week fact-checking whether or not this amendment would preclude parents from playing a role in abortion care of their minor children, contraceptive care of their minor children, or gender-affirming care.
Yeah, I spoke with a number of law professors who essentially said it was highly unlikely that this was going to affect parental consent. Ohio has a law right now that requires parental consent for a number of medical procedures, including abortion, but if you broke your leg or something like that, there are a few exceptions to that. For example, if you're emancipated or if you got married young or went to the military young, something like that. But what the law professors are saying is minors are frequently afforded fewer rights than adults, for example, in the First Amendment or Second Amendment, which are highly protected rights. We still put limits on how young someone could purchase a gun or what children could say in school, for example.
Yes, Terry.
The opening phrase in their constitutional amendment says every individual. So the question is, does that mean every adult or every individual, including 14, 15-year-old girls? So there's going to be big debate, lots of TV commercials over what every individual means. And then the other two words that there's going to be huge amount of debate on is reproductive decisions. Does that only mean abortion, or does that mean other things? And again, different law professors, different people, legal differ.
Go ahead, Jill.
And we need to remember the reason that they're shifting to parents' rights here is because about 59% of Ohioans support reproductive rights in some cases, in most or all cases, in fact, and only about 7% of Ohioans say we don't want any abortion rights.
Yeah, parental rights does poll much better than just banning abortion. Our next topic, a flat income tax for Ohio seems dead, at least for now. Back in February, House Speaker Jason Stephens proposed every Ohio taxpayer, regardless of income, pay the same rate. He proposed low-income and high-income taxpayers would pay the same 2 3/4%. That would have been a 30% tax cut for the highest earners. But that's not what's passed in the House budget. That House plan does cut taxes a little, and the cuts primarily benefit the lowest income tax brackets. Terry Casey, again, a big, bold tax cut plan similar to eliminating the income tax. The flat tax goes nowhere. Why?
Well, that whole plan of a flat tax was built on the idea of stripping away the real estate rollbacks that an awful lot of homeowners, seniors, small business people depended upon. And who wants to go back and face re-election in 24 and get blamed for raising your property taxes? So that's why they made the adjustment. And I think it's interesting that this markup came out of the committee with a lot of bipartisan support. It seems like Jay Edwards, the finance chairman, has done a good job of bringing people. Not everyone agrees on everything, but they're actually pretty unified so far right now.
Sam, they are modest tax cuts. Most people probably won't even realize they happen, but it does go from the bottom up. The lower income tax bracket gets, the no tax bracket gets a little longer, a little wider. You have to be in support of this.
I'm not in support of it because it's a camouflage for continual stripping of tax resources from the state of Ohio. We've been giving corporations, we've been giving individuals who are rich all these breaks. We've ripped the resources out of the state of Ohio. I find our largest revenue source is sales tax. That's unbelievable in today's world. What could be much more regressive than sales tax? We have all these billionaires and corporations who are not paying their fair share. In fact, most of them play zero.
Jesse, does the Senate go bolder with the tax cuts, or are they basically sign off on the House plan, do you think?
I mean, I'm sure the Senate won't be signing off, wholesale on anything that the House passes over there. So that's what was going to be my point. Is essentially stay tuned on these income tax cuts, because I think we'll see at least a couple more variations of this before it is signed by the governor before the end of June.
Julie, the big dream, John Kasich's big dream, was to eliminate the income tax gradually over years, be like Florida, I think Texas, New Hampshire even. Is that anywhere in our future?
I just think it's very difficult in our state for reasons Terry's pointing out. I mean, you lower one, you have a Republican legislature that's trying to do no tax increases, and so they can't raise it elsewhere when they cut it there and meet their pledge, and it just makes it very difficult for them to get rid of a major source of income.
All right. The role of parents in their child's education has become a political fight. Of course, every teacher wants a family that supports the student and continues the learning at home. But a lot of parents demand more of a say in what lessons are taught and what books are in the library. At the State House, Republican lawmakers have introduced the Parents' Bill of Rights. It would require schools share information about students' physical and mental health with parents. And as reported by the Dispatch, lawmakers have eliminated a provision that would allow teachers to withhold information if it would result in abuse or neglect. Sam Gresham, what is the proper role of parents when it comes to education policy and how their kids are treated in school, what they learn?
I think parents, and being a parent, having gone through that process, should have a recommending role, but not a controlling role. Creating educational opportunities, programs, pathways for our children is a skill that's professional. Parents sometimes have too many biases that don't meet the needs of our community. This is, again, what I would call lawlessness on the part of Republicans. Who says this was a problem? We have a lot of other problems in the state of Ohio, but nobody said that this was a problem. How this came about is because we out-organized the Republicans and got our people elected to the state school board. And once we got our people elected to state school board, policies changed. Now that we have our people on the school board, they want to change the rules. I mean, they always want to change the rules when we play by the rules and win.
Terry, is this really a problem? Are there many cases of students being counseled by guidance counselors or other counselors in the schools, and then them not telling the parents, or the parents being unaware of issues that are going on?
Well, there's certainly challenges because Ohio has over 600 different school districts, and it's hard to generalize for all 88 counties and all of those districts. But the reality is the parents and the educators need to work together, and local school boards are important as far as voices of the parents, voices of the communities. But clearly, it's become a bit of a political football, but the reality is they've got to work together because you need both. And at times, the educational bureaucracy, you might have run into a place called Ohio State University, sometimes they get a little arrogant and a little out of control, so they both have got to work together. That's the key thing.
Julie, the one that says you have to notify the parent even if there's a chance that the child could be subject to abuse or neglect by notifying the parent of this counseling. The defenders say, well, you also have to report the abuse or neglect. So basically you have to make two phone calls. One, the person's being abused, and one, okay, hi, we're helping this student because it's being abused, possibly by a family member.
Right, and I mean, it's putting another burden on teachers who are, they already are having to do with the lesson plans, the other thing, and it's oddly shifting sort of a social role to them at the same time that the parents' rights supporters want them sort of out of parents' lives and want parents to have a bigger role. And I think that, children have teachers in their lives, they have coaches, they have churches and all kinds of different adults in their lives that might have a role, and it's up to the parents ultimately to sort of sift all that at home and help their kids figure the world out.
Is this because, Jesse, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia won on a parents' right message, or are politicians figuring this is one way to appeal to perhaps suburban folks that they lost during the Donald Trump years?
I mean, I think that's certainly one possibility. It's a situation where this type of language has been very popular, you know, school choice, parents' rights, like really empowering these parents to be making all of the decisions versus government. And so, but sometimes there are rules for reasons.
Yeah, and it's coming at this time when schools were kind of in the crosshairs here because their DEI, their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are viewed by people on the political right as preaching a certain position. A lot of schools were getting gender-neutral bathrooms. They were allowing transgender students onto athletic teams. And so we're seeing a whole host of Republican legislative initiatives across the country to counter that.
I agree with her wholeheartedly. There's no substantive reason to do what they're doing. They're doing it for political purposes. Our educational process has a lot of need for improvement, but this is not one of the areas that's a problem. It's for those parents who want to have more control over the educational process of their kids. That's less than 5% of parents.
What if there is a book, an extreme case, that is being taught that the parents think is clearly offensive? Do they have the right to say, look, I don't want
Who
that?
decides that? Now, based on what happened in Florida, you can no longer read Baldwin, you can no longer read Aristotle. I can go on the names of people who are profound in making the history who were gay. So now you can't read those people? Beethoven, you want me to complete the list?
All right. The Republican field for U.S. Senate has doubled in size. We're up to 2 candidates this week. Cleveland businessman Bernie Moreno entered the race to take on Democrat Sherrod Brown. Moreno joins State Senator Matt Dolan. He embraces former President Trump. Dolan, not so much. Moreno ran in 2022 but dropped out after meeting with Donald Trump. Trump has given him a kind of pre-endorsement saying he would be hard to beat. Terry Casey, is Bernie Moreno going to be tough to beat in the Republican primary?
Well, his problem right now is he's unknown and undefined, and so the good news is he's got money. And I've met and talked with him on a couple different times, and he's a very bright, savvy, articulate guy, but he's got to figure out what's his message to both win the primary as well as win in the general. And by the way, Sherrod Brown is weak and got problems. I mean, he was first elected when he was 22 years old. He's a career politician. If reelected again, he'd be 72. He's been there a long time, and public is not happy with career politicians, but it's a long way to go, and I predict we'll talk about this a lot
How
more.
old was Mike DeWine when he got first elected?
Thank you.
Well, that was county prosecutor.
Okay.
That's different.
There's a guy named Voinovich. I can put that name up in
I-
here.
Sometimes they like career politicians and sometimes they
I can
don't.
go on if you want.
I understand.
Julie, do you expect this field to be as crowded as it was in 2022 when Rob Portman announced he wasn't running? It was an open seat. This is still a Sherrod Brown, an incumbent, popular politician. It's not quite as clear a path.
Right, so in a word, no. Yeah, that was a really kind of a free-for-all as we saw last time because it was an open seat on both sides and everybody knew there wasn't an incumbency factor there. This time we do have a very well-known, multiple times elected incumbent. So Moreno himself told me last week that he did not think that the field was going to be as large, and he predicted maybe Frank LaRose wouldn't even get in, which is interesting because I think Frank LaRose has said he might want to get in. But yeah, I think it'll be a handful, but I don't think 9.
Jesse, if you read Frank LaRose's Twitter feed, he's mentions Sherrod Brown quite a lot for a person who only has a perhaps passing interest in U.S. Senate politics. It seems to be an indication that he is running, or at least seriously considering
I think he's at least seriously considering it. And the question is just, you know, which lane does he run in? Does he run in a lane that is trying to win the Trump endorsement? Does Bernie Moreno have that endorsement locked up? Or is he trying to run more as a moderate who's worked with Democrats in the past and try to take votes from Matt Dolan, for example? So, you know, which voters are you going after?
Which which Republican has a best chance against Sherrod Brown? Which candidate would he fear the most, do you think, Sam?
I'm not sure because I'm fuzzy on who's going to do this, but I'm going to tell you this. Sherrod Brown is going to be a cause célèbre for Democrats and liberals. That is, we are going to surround him and fight like H to get him elected because we would know what that would mean for Ohio. He only won by 7% last time, but the atmosphere in this state is changing, and I love the Roe ruling, because we're taking, God dog it, how far are we going to go on abortion? We're going to run that sucker all the way to the presidency and get rid of as many Republicans as we possibly can. We appreciate that gift.
Well, I thought you weren't a Democrat, but now you're saying all this
I'm a
stuff.
liberal.
Oh, a liberal. Okay,
right.
good.
So how does this shake out, Terry? Because if there are 3 or 4 candidates, then the one who's the most pro-Trump candidate could sneak in, like
right.
J.D. Vance kind of did last time.
Well, one of the differences Frank LaRose has got to look at is the 2 who have announced are both millionaires who, when they raise money, what they have to do is get the checkbook out and write the check, and both of them can write big checks. So it's different than before, but again, this is something we're going to talk about a lot, because much is going to happen between now and next May.
Yeah, we got a while to go.
Or maybe March. I'm not sure when the election's going to be.
That's right. Well, the deadline approaches for Ohio lawmakers to act on a proposal to legalize recreational marijuana in Ohio. They have until May 3rd, that's next Wednesday, to pass the proposal as is, or supporters of legal marijuana will begin collecting signatures to get the issue on the November ballot. The proposal would allow anyone over 21 to buy and have marijuana, and those purchases would be taxed at a rate of 10%. Meanwhile, lawmakers are considering streamlining government oversight of the state's medical marijuana system. Jesse Balmert, what is the appetite? You talked to Senate President Matt Huffman this week, or you were in part of a session with him. He doesn't seem like he wants to move on this at all.
Yeah, what is the appetite? There is no appetite for legalizing marijuana in the Ohio legislature, which is predominantly Republican at this juncture. Matt Huffman said went so far as long as he was in control, it was not going to come up for a vote, versus other issues where I think he opposes but would bring it up for a vote if there was substantial support, for example, the death penalty.
What about the argument that, okay, if they reach a deal with these folks and have more control of the recreational pot industry, that might, rather than have just give it all away give all the power to whatever's in this amendment?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen before when there are initiative efforts that has forced the Ohio legislature, particularly even medical marijuana, to take a look at some of these issues that maybe they were disinclined to go forward on before, but I don't think this is one of them.
And don't forget, the governor is very strong in opposition to this. I think the AG is too, and I might summarize it. I'm not sure there's a lot of hope for dope, because there's a lot coming out of New York and other states that's saying marijuana and people doing too much of that is not always the best thing.
Polls show, though, Julie, that most people want it, and there have been cases as with booze and everything else of problems, but the world hasn't ended in those states.
Right. I mean, we've seen it liberalized across the country, mostly medically, but there are recreational states that the number of those is growing, and the issue might be generational. As younger people are coming up, they're supporting it more, and so I think again, our Constitution will be a target for the people who can't get what they want at the State House.
Yeah, but Mike, that's Earth 2 we're talking about. On Earth 1, people have already moved on beyond these chaotic old issues. We're trying to move on to the new world, not the old world. These people it's going to come, like gambling, like all the other things that everybody tried to oppose until they got some of the money. When they get a piece of change, it's okay for it to go.
Terry, you mentioned all the folks who are opposed, but like I asked Jesse, I'll ask you, isn't it better that if they have to have done polling, it's coming, it's happened in other states, why not, like casinos came and they had no control over it. It was a monopoly, there was 4, they had no control, the state had no control. Wouldn't it be better to say, let's do this, but we want more control? Tax it at 20% maybe?
Well, that's a nice theory, and I don't think the money's really, because the amount of money is fairly small and marginal. It's more about, I think people are looking to see some of these states that have legalized it for recreational, has it really worked out as well as you think? And there's also still some significant federal issues as far as banking, movement of money. This is not as simple as a trend that everybody's doing it.
Well, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots, and Sam Gresham, you're up first.
On Earth 2, we need to be able to communicate from Earth 1. America's moving on issues. We are still in the dark ages with some of these ideas. Pray for me.
All right, Terry.
Less than a half block from right here we are at the new WOSU studios, there was a murder earlier today, and Columbus's murder rate is, I think, out of control, over 50 murders so far. And if you look at from the 15-year period, 2005 to 2020, Columbus averaged 106 murders. In 21, we were at 206, and we're not in a good path, and I don't think the mayor's plans of hoping and just talking about the causes of crime is really solving things.
Julie.
Huge news week coming up. We're watching for the Householder and Borges request for a new trial to overturn their guilty pleas, and we'll have a state budget.
All right, and Jesse.
Elon Musk made good on his promise to remove the blue check marks, including from one Governor Mike DeWine this week.
Interesting. He's not going to pay to get it back, I guess.
He now has a gray government check mark.
Oh, okay. And they finally have removed all the disclaimers on NPR and PBS. We're not state-run media. We're not government-funded media. We're just plain old media. Anyway, it has been a while, but Politics in a Pint is coming back. Politics and a Pint. For the first time since the before times, Ann Fisher and I will host a fun night of political discussion at 7th Sun Brewing on North 4th Street. Thursday, May 11th at 6 o'clock in the evening. Please get your tickets and register at wosu.org/events. We've had a lot of requests to bring this back, and it's finally happened, and it should be a good time. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. We urge you to continue the conversation on Facebook. Follow us there. You can also watch us anytime on your time at our website, wosu.org/COTR, or on the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.